My Java interview preparation series. The question of this video is, what are the primitive data types in Java? The primitive data types in Java are byte, short, int, long for storing the integer uh, numbers, char for storing the Unicode characters, float and double for storing the floating point numbers of different precision, and boolean for storing the logical values true and false. So let's start with byte. Byte is used to store signed integer numbers. Its size is 1 byte or 8 bits. But since this data type is signed, 1 bit of its size is used for storing the sign of the value, so whether it's positive or negative. And the rest of the bits, 7 bits, are used to um, store the absolute value of the number. So the range of its values is from -2 power of 8 minus 1 and up to 2 power minus power 8 minus 1 and minus 1. Why minus 1 in this case is because 0 is also considered as a positive value, so it's included in the range. And here 8 minus 1 means that only that 1 bit is used for storing the sign of the value, and the rest 7 bits are used for storing the absolute value of the number. So this is the limitation. Short is used for storing the integer numbers. The size of it is 2 bytes, and here is the range of its values. So it's much bigger than byte, but it's pretty limited because the values range is like from about minus 32,000 to approximately 32,000. And the next data type is int, used for store integer numbers too. Its size is 4 bytes, and it has a value range from approximately 2 billions and something, minus 2 billions and something, to 2 billions and something. And here are some examples of literals for integer types, int, short, and byte. So this is usual decimal literal you can use to define a variable of int type or short type. Here is an example of a binary literal. Here is an example of an octal literal and a hexadecimal. And you can also use the underscore character, for example, to make your number, your literal, more readable, because in this case we use underscore to say that these are thousands, these are millions, and so on. And it's also pretty useful when you write the binary numbers, so you can divide either every bit or like bits. With hexadecimal numbers, you can also divide the numbers by bytes, so this underscore character is useful. The next integer data type is long, is used to store signed integer numbers of double precision. That's why it's long, because its size is 8 bytes, and it has a much bigger range of values. So it's -2 power 64 minus 1 to 2 power 64 minus 1 minus 1, because 0 is also a positive number. And its literal is like a decimal literal, but it also has an L at the end. In this case, I wrote the capital L, but it can be also a lowercase l. But I do recommend you using the capital L because of confusion, because you can accidentally confuse lowercase l with 1 or some other digit. And same as with previous example, you can use underscore to make it more readable. So the next primitive data type is float, is used to store floating point numbers. Its size is 4 bytes. It has its own literal, like the normal floating point number with an F at the end. And here is how it's represented in memory. So comparing to integer data types, it has also one bit to store the sign, whether it's positive or negative value, but it uses, for example, 8 bits to store the exponent and 32 bits to store the fraction. So floats and integers are represented differently, very differently in the memory. And the next primitive data type is double, is used to store floating point numbers of double precision, and its size is 8 bytes. It has it's literal, so it's very useful floating point numbers, number literal. And also with floating point numbers, you can use this notation, the standard notation, to write, for example, the value and the exponent of the value, and it has a similar memory representation, same as float, but with much bigger precision. So it uses 1 bit for sign, um, 11 bits for the exponent, and 52 bits for the fraction. Okay, so the next data type is char. Is used to store Unicode symbols. It's compatible with short data type. Actually, you can use the same values for character. It has a size of 2 bytes, same as short, and it has its own literal. You can actually use the short literal, but you can also use this single quote literal to write characters. And also it supports some special characters, and also it supports this kind of notation. If you need to write some, for example, analphabetic character which cannot be represented with an alphabet sign, you can use this Unicode notation. And the last primitive type is Boolean, used to store Boolean values true or false. And some people may think underneath that, under the hood, it uses just 1 bit of memory, 0 or 1, but actually depending on the type of Java virtual machine, it can use an integer. This is but important to know that it has only 2 possible values, true or false. So this was it about primitive data types in Java. I hope you enjoyed the videos, and hit the like button if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel for the future updates, and thanks for watching. See you in the next one.